I walked into my honeymoon suite expecting champagne and rose petals. Instead, I found my wife underneath her former boss on our bed. What I did next didn't just ruin their affair. It destroyed everything they'd built in their professional and personal lives. Before we continue to this true story, please subscribe to the channel and comment the time zone you are watching from. My name is Marcus Chun, and at 35, I thought I'd finally figure life out. I'd made a fortune in cryptocurrency consulting, bought a house in Portland, and married my college best friend. Sarah and I had known each other for 14 years. We'd studied computer science together, pulled all-nighters in the library, and stayed close even when life took us in different directions. She went into corporate finance while I rode the crypto wave. When I finally asked her to marry me last year, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We weren't some whirlwind romance. We were friends who'd grown into something deeper. At least, that's what I believed. The wedding was small, just family and close friends at a vineyard outside Seattle. Sarah looked radiant in her dress, and when she said her vows, I saw tears in her eyes. Real tears. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We'd picked Maui for our honeymoon, a resort right on the beach with one of those infinity pools that blend into the ocean, the kind of place you see in magazines and think, someday. For us, someday had arrived. We landed in Maui on a Saturday afternoon. The air smelled like plumeria and salt water. Sarah seemed distracted during the shuttle ride to the resort, checking her phone more than usual. I asked if work was bothering her. She said her boss, Derek, was just checking in on a project. Derek Chun, no relation to me, despite the same last name. He'd been Sarah's supervisor for 3 years at the investment firm where she worked. I'd met him twice, once at a company holiday party, and once at our wedding. Mid-40s, expensive suits, the kind of handshake that tries too hard. Sarah always spoke highly of him, called him a mentor, said he'd taught her everything about portfolio management. The first 2 days were perfect. We snorkeled at Molokini Crater, drank Mai Tais at sunset, made love with the balcony doors open so we could hear the waves. On the third night, Sarah said she had a headache and wanted to turn in early. I suggested we skip the luau we'd planned and just relax. She smiled and kissed my cheek, said she'd probably feel better after some sleep. I told her I'd stay at the beach bar for one more drink, give her some quiet time. I nursed a beer and watched tourists take photos of the sunset. The bartender was friendly. We talked about Bitcoin and blockchain. He'd lost money on some altcoin and wanted advice. I gave him some basic tips. Told him to stick with the major coins if he wasn't willing to do deep research. An hour passed, maybe 90 minutes. When I headed back to our suite, I felt relaxed, happy, thinking about how I'd crawl into bed next to my wife and hold her while she slept. I opened the door quietly. Didn't want to wake her if she was still resting. The lights were dim. I could hear sounds from the bedroom. At first, I thought she'd left the TV on, but the sounds were wrong. Too rhythmic, too human. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. I walked toward the bedroom. Each step felt like moving through water. The door was half open, and there they were. Sarah was on her back. Derek was on top of her. Our bed, the one we'd christened 2 nights earlier. The white sheets we'd tangled ourselves in. Her legs were wrapped around him. His face was buried in her neck. Neither of them heard me. They were too lost in each other. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. My hands went numb. My ears started ringing. Sarah opened her eyes and saw me. Her face didn't just show shock. It showed annoyance, like I'd interrupted something important. Derek turned his head. He didn't scramble off her. He didn't apologize. He just looked at me with this calm expression. Then he slowly pulled out and sat on the edge of the bed. Sarah grabbed a sheet and covered herself. Nobody spoke for a long moment. I was waiting for the panic, the crying, the begging for forgiveness. Instead, Sarah sighed. She actually sighed, like this was tedious. "Marcus, I can explain," she said. Her voice was steady, too steady. Derek stood up and started pulling on his boxers. He moved like he had all the time in the world. I found my voice. It came out hoarse. "How long?" Sarah looked at Derek, then back at me. 2 years, she said. 2 years. We'd only been dating for 3. I felt my knees weaken. I sat down hard in the chair by the window. Derek finished dressing. He buttoned his shirt slowly. I should leave you two to talk, he said. His voice was casual, like we'd just finished a business meeting. I looked at him, really looked at him. You came to our wedding, I said. You shook my hand. You gave a toast. Derek shrugged. Sarah wanted me there. The simplicity of his response made it worse. There was no guilt, no shame, just matter-of-fact adultery. After Derek left, Sarah got dressed. She didn't try to hide or hurry. She put on a robe and sat on the bed. I was still in the chair. My mind was racing, but also completely blank. Why marry me? I finally asked. Sarah looked out at the ocean through our balcony. Because you're stable. Because you're kind. Because I knew you'd be a good husband and eventually a good father. The clinical way she said it cut deeper than any insult. And Derek, I asked. She smiled. Actually smiled. Derek makes me feel alive. She told me everything. How it started at a conference in San Francisco. How they'd been careful. Hotel rooms far from the office. Encrypted messages. A whole separate life I'd known nothing about. She said she planned to end it after the wedding. That marrying me was supposed to be her choosing the sensible path. But Derek had surprised her. Flown to Maui and gotten a room at the same resort. She'd been planning to see him just once. One last time before committing fully to our marriage. You were supposed to be at the bar longer, she said. That line broke something in me. The betrayal was one thing, but the entitlement, the audacity to be annoyed at me for catching her. I stood up, looked at her one last time. I want a divorce, I said. Sarah nodded. I figured. Marcus, for what it's worth, I do care about you. This wasn't about you not being enough. I laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. You're right. This was about you being greedy. I grabbed my wallet and phone and left. I spent that night in the resort lobby. Didn't sleep. Just sat in a chair and watched the sunrise. By morning, I'd made decisions. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to be smart. I flew home the next day. Sarah stayed in Maui. I didn't ask if Derek stayed with her. I didn't care. The first thing I did was call a lawyer, a good one who specialized in quick divorces. Oregon's a no-fault state, but my lawyer said the faster we moved, the cleaner the split. Sarah didn't fight it. She wanted out as much as I did. We divided assets. She kept her accounts. I kept mine. The house was in my name. She moved out within a week. But I wasn't done. See, Derek had made a mistake. He'd assumed I was just some tech nerd who'd cry and move on. He didn't know what I did for a living. Not really. Sarah had told him I worked in crypto, but she didn't understand the details herself. I wasn't just trading coins. I was a forensic blockchain analyst. I helped law firms trace stolen cryptocurrency. I found hidden wallets. I followed money that people thought was untraceable. And I was very, very good at it. I started digging into Derek's life. Publicly, he was clean. Respected portfolio manager. 20 years at the same firm. Good reputation. But I had tools most people don't. I started with his social media, his connections, small things. Then I moved to professional databases. LinkedIn showed me his career trajectory. I found articles he'd written, interviews he'd given. Then I got creative. Through some contacts in the crypto community, I accessed transaction records. Derek had invested in cryptocurrency. Nothing illegal about that, but the timing was interesting. I found multiple wallets, all funded around the same time. Different exchanges, different coins. The amounts weren't huge individually. 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But they added up, and the timing coincided with major deals at his firm. I cross-referenced dates, client acquisitions, fund movements. A pattern emerged. Derek had inside information, and he'd been using it to front-run trades in the crypto market. Front-running is illegal. It's when someone with advanced knowledge of large transactions uses that information to profit. If Derek knew his firm was about to move $50 million into a particular stock, and he bought cryptocurrency that historically correlated with that stock movement, he could make a killing, small enough that traditional regulators wouldn't notice. But I noticed. I spent 3 weeks building an airtight case, transaction records, wallet addresses, timestamps, everything linked back to Derek's devices through metadata I pulled from blockchain explorers. I documented every single trade. Then I made a phone call, not to police, to the SEC Securities and Exchange Commission. I sent them everything, every wallet, every transaction, every correlation. I included a detailed report, made it impossible to ignore. Then I called the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. FINRA takes insider trading seriously, especially when it involves a senior portfolio manager. I gave them the same documentation. Then I waited. The investigation took 2 months. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. I moved on with my life. Or tried to. I threw myself into work, took on new clients, started exercising again, went to therapy twice a week. My therapist said I was processing grief and betrayal in a healthy way. I didn't tell her about the investigation. That felt like something I needed to keep to myself. The news broke on a Wednesday. Senior investment manager charged with insider trading and securities fraud. Derek's face was all over the financial news sites. The SEC had frozen his accounts. FINRA had suspended his licenses. His firm fired him immediately and issued a statement condemning his actions. They were cooperating fully with investigators. The article said Derek had made roughly $400,000 through illegal trades over 3 years. The penalties would be massive. Fines, restitution, possible prison time. Sarah called me that night. First time we'd spoken since signing the divorce papers. "Did you do this?" she asked. Her voice was shaking. I didn't answer right away. Just let the silence sit. "I don't know what you're talking about." I finally said, "Marcus, please. Derek's life is destroyed. He's facing felony charges." I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No guilt. Just emptiness. He destroyed himself, Sarah. He broke the law. I just made sure the right people knew about it. She started crying. Real crying. Not the controlled tears from our wedding. He might go to prison. His career is over. His wife left him. I paused. His wife? Sarah went quiet. "You didn't know he was married?" I asked. More silence. Then soft sobs. Derek had been married the whole time. 17 years. 2 kids in high school. Sarah hadn't known. He'd hidden it from her the same way she'd hidden him from me. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, "for everything. I was selfish. I was stupid. I hurt you and I hurt his family, and I ruined everything." I took a breath. "You did?" I agreed. "But Derek made his choices too. You both did. Actions have consequences." She asked if we could meet for coffee, talk things through, find some closure. I said no, told her I'd found my closure. Then I hung up. Derek took a plea deal 6 months later. 3 years in federal prison. $500,000 in fines and restitution. Loss of all professional licenses. His wife divorced him. His kids stopped speaking to him. His face became a cautionary tale in finance circles. The Derek Chun case was taught in ethics seminars. Sarah quit her job. The scandal had touched everyone at the firm. She moved to Chicago. I heard through mutual friends that she was working at a smaller company. Starting over. We never spoke again. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. Sold the house. Too many memories. Bought a condo downtown with a view of the river. Traveled to places Sarah and I had never been together. Japan, Iceland, Argentina. I dated a little. Nothing serious. Trust doesn't come back quickly. But I wasn't bitter. I was careful. There's a difference. My business grew. The Derek case had been high profile enough that my name got around in certain circles. Law firms started calling. I became the guy you hired when you needed to follow cryptocurrency money. I was good before. Now I was in demand. 2 years after Maui, I met someone. Her name was Priya. She was a professor of cybersecurity at Portland State. We met at a conference where I was speaking about blockchain forensics. She asked smart questions. We got coffee, then dinner, then more dinners. I told her about Sarah on our fourth date. Everything. The honeymoon, the betrayal, what I'd done to Derek. I expected judgment. Instead, she said, he broke the law, you held him accountable. That's not revenge. That's justice. Priya understood something important. I hadn't fabricated evidence. I hadn't framed anyone. I'd simply revealed the truth. Derek had committed crimes. Sarah had betrayed vows. I'd just made sure they faced consequences. Some people called it vindictive when the story eventually made its rounds. Others called it karma. I called it balance. You can't cheat and lie and expect the universe to look away. Sometimes the universe has help. I think about that night in Maui sometimes. Walking into that room, seeing my wife with another man, the look on her face, annoyance, not shame. If she'd been sorry, maybe things would have been different. If Derek had shown an ounce of remorse, maybe I would have walked away. But they didn't. They were careless, entitled. They thought they could have everything without paying a price. Sarah wanted stability and passion. Derek wanted money and affairs. Neither wanted consequences. I gave them consequences, not through violence or public humiliation, through information, through facts, through the legal system. I took what I was good at, and I used it. Some nights I wonder if I went too far, if destroying Derek's career and freedom was proportional to what he did to my marriage. Then I remember the $400,000 he stole, the clients he defrauded, the system he corrupted. I remember his calm face as he dressed in my honeymoon suite, and I stopped wondering. Sarah reached out once more. About a year ago, she sent a letter to my old address. My realtor forwarded it. She said she was in therapy, working on herself. She wanted me to know she understood how deeply she'd hurt me. She said she'd been a coward and a fool. She hoped I'd found happiness. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just said she was sorry. I read it twice. Then I put in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll write back. Maybe I won't. The anger is gone, but so is the affection. She's just someone I used to know. Priya! And I got engaged last month. Small ceremony planned for next spring. Nothing big, just family and real friends. We're honeymooning in New Zealand, someplace neither of us has been. Fresh memories. No ghosts. She knows the whole story. Knows what I'm capable of when someone wrongs me. She's not afraid. She says she trusts me because I'm honest, because I don't pretend to be something I'm not, because when I make a promise, I keep it. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Betrayal doesn't happen in a vacuum. People make choices. They weigh options. They decide that what they want is worth more than who they hurt. Sarah chose excitement over loyalty. Derek chose greed over ethics. They both thought they were smart enough to get away with it. They weren't. And when the truth came out, they didn't face it with grace. They faced it with excuses and self-pity. That's what made the consequences inevitable. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not ashamed either. I didn't destroy Derek's life. He built his life on fraud and lies. I just turned on the lights. Sarah destroyed our marriage. She made vows she had no intention of keeping. I just refused to be the fool who pretended it didn't happen. People want to believe in karma, in cosmic justice. But sometimes karma needs a little help. Sometimes the universe works through blockchain forensics and SEC investigations. 3 years later, I'm happy, genuinely happy. I wake up next to someone I trust. I do work I'm good at. I've learned that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can refine you, make you sharper, more careful, less naive. I'll never be the person who walked into that Maui resort believing love and friendship were enough. But I'm okay with that. That person was too trusting, too willing to ignore red flags. The person I am now pays attention. Sarah's living her life somewhere in the Midwest. Derek's 2 years into his sentence. I'm here in Portland, planning a wedding to someone who chose me knowing exactly who I am. That's not revenge. That's not even justice. That's just life continuing after it breaks apart. You pick up the pieces. You decide which ones to keep and which ones to throw away. You build something new, And if you're lucky, it's stronger than what you had before. My honeymoon turned into a nightmare I never asked for. But nightmares end. And sometimes, on the other side, you find something better than the dream you lost. You find reality. Messy, complicated, honest reality. And if you're really lucky, you find someone who wants to live in that reality with you. Someone who won't waste your trust. Someone who knows that love isn't just about feeling alive. It's about staying faithful, and being alive means choosing the harder path. I chose the harder path. I didn't fall apart. I didn't beg. I didn't pretend it didn't hurt. I just made sure that the people who hurt me understood that actions have weight, that lies have expiration dates, that sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who knows exactly how to make the truth impossible to hide. And in the end, the truth is the only revenge that lasts. Everything else fades. But facts, documented and delivered to the right people, those live forever.